Hello, my name's Dave Mack and welcome to my latest TEW IX video, which is going to be something a little bit different today. Rather than my usual playing through the game, I'm actually going to look at something that is much talked about, and whether you love it or hate it, it is going to be the new angle system. I think a lot of people kind of are not big fans of it. We've seen it's the biggest probably change from 2020 through to TEW IX, and lots of people not really enjoying it, maybe thinking it's a little bit more cumbersome. Personally, I think it's quite good. It's really improved my workflow of how I play the game, so I thought I'd just do a walkthrough of just having a look at it. Now, I should caveat this saying this isn't going to be a how to book a 100 rated segment, because that's kind of, it's what we're all looking for, but it's not really the whole purpose of this. I'm not trying to show you how to game the system to really beat it, but I just want to give you an idea of how to play through the system and how we can kind of make it work for yourself to improve your workflow. Now, I know for some it probably won't work and probably still won't enjoy it, but for me, I've really enjoyed how it's kind of changed the game and it's made it a lot easier for me to play. Those who follow my channel, they will realise I play a WCW 1995 game and a 21st century game in the C-verse. For the purposes of this video, I am going to be using a WWE modern day save, simply because it's going to give us a lot of people whose names you recognise. It's going to be easier going through things, and when I say if Tommy Cornell was cutting a promo, for example, some people might not be able to refer to that and know it as easily as something like CM Punk, which we'll all kind of have an idea of. Well, CM Punk, we know he's a great on the mic and all things like that. So I'm just using this for the purposes of the game to try and get it through. Now, I've got a episode of here of Main Event that we're going to go through, so we're going to kind of have a look at this. One of the first things that I would suggest doing is, if you want to see how the actual game books things, I would get the game to auto book a show and start looking through how they put together their segments and how they put together their angles, just to get an idea of how they play, to see what ratings they get and to see what they do, to see how that fits in there. I think there's kind of two ways of playing TEW. You can either play it to game the system and try and win and get your highest ratings possible, which I try and avoid, or there's kind of, you find that middle ground of where you try and be a proper booker and still get decent ratings, which is how I do play. So, for example, I would stick CM Punk on the microphone, for example, because he's very, very good on the microphone. So my first protocol, go through the auto book a few shows, sees what they're doing and how that works, and start to get an idea of it. But if we go into the actual angle booker now, I'm going to just walk through all the different little bits and bobs of it, just so you get an idea of how it works, and just to see if it can maybe speed up how you're going to play the game. But possibly it will, possibly it won't, but it's kind of worked for me. So if we go to the top tabs, we have the booking details, which is the screen you're going to be seeing most of the time. We have the staff up here, which is our commentators, which again is going to be something we're kind of used to doing. And we've got our road agent, who we're going to put in for this, who we think will be able to do it now. Let's stick someone like William Regal in there, who's going to be brilliant. And it's got all their kind of ratings here that we worry about here. So the booking details, this is our segment name. This is what will come up when we run the show through. So this will tell us what actually happens in the segment. We've got the segment length here, which is going to be determined by what we change these to and end up saving it as. So that will change there. The pre and post show, again, I think you'll all be pretty well versed with that. Importance, this is a kind of new thing. A lot of this, I'm just going to be going through what the actual manual tells us about these things. We all have access to the handbook. I'm not sure we all bother reading through it all of the time, so this is a kind of there. The importance is just whether it is logged in the show's history. This is apparently whether you want to clog up the history or not. It makes no difference, so it doesn't really bother me at all. I wouldn't worry too much about that. And our dialogue, is it going to be scripted or improvised? Again, this is something that our regular TEW players, you're all going to be fairly au fait with that and understand. Now, firstly, I would say for the new angle system, for me, for like Main Event, where I'm running here, for the B shows, we have a fantastic little quick add angle button down here, which I think this is absolutely great. If we use the quick add angle, this is select, it'll overwrite anything, so we're happy with that. If we go in here, it's got a real sort of basic breakdown of putting together some real sort of bog standard angles that you'd see kind of every week. So we might have a 6-minute in the ring interview with, let's say, let's pick Xavier Woods, and he is being interviewed by, let's say, Paul Heyman. That's probably never going to happen, and we could use all of these buttons here that will be a really good way of quickly booking through a B show where we're not overly worried by what the actual outcome of the end rating is going to be. We're not too worried about what it's going to be. I would use this for a purely realistic way of booking, because I want Xavier Woods to be in the ring, interviewed by Paul Heyman, and he is talking about his number one. I don't think he's number one enemy at the moment. Be Piper Nevin. He's number one. Oh no, Robert Roode's a. Isn't he like a road agent now? Anyway, so his number one enemy at the moment is Shinsuke Nakamura. So Xavier Woods is being interviewed by Paul Heyman talking about Shinsuke Nakamura. So we'll name this here saying Woods interviewed by Heyman on Shinsuke. And we'll fill that in, and it says, do we want to do this? Absolutely. So this fills in all of these things here. The one thing with using a quick angle is we can't break this down into the parts. So the parts is where we can start making our angles slightly bigger and bulkier and slightly more fleshed out compared to where they would be. So, but the nuts and bolts of it is we've got a 6-minute in the ring interview which is being conducted live, and it's a content type, and we have here in the workers part we have this is we've got Paul Heyman as the interviewer, Shinsuke Nakamura's off screen, and Xavier Woods is being interviewed. We could save that, and that would be an absolutely perfect little angle we've got booked in there. That's a 6-minute interview there, and that's just done with a quick angle. I think this is really useful for the B shows, as I say, because it's really quick to go through doing this. We're not too worried about what the outcome of it's going to be, so we're not too bothered by what they're going to get rated on and how they're going to be rated in that segment. If we wanted to start building this angle and have, say, Shinsuke Nakamura come down to ringside and attack Xavier Woods, we can do that by adding extra parts to the actual promo. You can do this by adding a new part, and adding a new part gives us a completely blank slate to add. Or what I would tend to do in this situation is that I would add a copy of part 1, and then we could take Xavier Woods, and he is now the victim, and we'll update that, and we'll have Shinsuke Nakamura is I think it is an attacker. Update that, and we'll have Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman is just going to be in a non-speaking appearance because he's going to stand there looking all shocked. Now, what we can do in this is we can go through and name our parts. So when we go back through this angle, when we run the show, we'll actually have an idea of what part 1 is. So part 1 is Woods talks about Nakamura, and we're going to save that. And part 2 is going to be Nakamura attacks Woods. And again, what we've done here, if we save that again, and if we book that, we now have a slightly more fleshed out Xavier Woods getting interviewed, Nakamura comes down and attacks him. So that's kind of how we use the parts of an angle, and we've used the quick angle builder there. Now, we have all of these different bits and bobs here as we go along, which make a big difference to our angle. We have the name, which is going to be the naming part of each part of the angle. We have the length, so if we have this 10 minutes and we have the next one for 10 minutes, we have a 20-minute angle. Our location, now this is one way if you start going through the handbook, you start seeing what differences these make. It is in the ring. In the ring is performed in front of a live crowd, so the actual performers have more chance of getting a kind of bonus from performing with the crowd, and they might feed off of that energy, and they also might get a little bit nervous, so it's a kind of risk and reward. Backstage, again, it's not in front of a crowd, so there's less pressure on them, so they might perform, but they might not get that bonus of performing in front of the crowd. And an outside broadcast, the same there. These are kind of more for your immersion and things like that. The type, again, an angle or a video would be seen as pre-taped. So there's a chance they can go back, they can redo them, and it's not a live. An interview is something that's happening live, so it's in front of it's a one and done. You haven't got a chance of going back and changing that. Angle and video, by and large, are meant to be the same. It's just for your immersion purposes there, that if you want it to be an angle as opposed to a video. So that's what makes the difference. Status, again, is it happening live or is it a pre-taped one? So we might have a pre-taped Probably wouldn't have a pre-taped in the ring, but we might have a pre-taped backstage thing. Again, if you're pre-taping, we can go back, we can keep doing it until we get it right, but we might miss the magic of a first one. Content type, this is one I see a lot of people who kind of struggle with the idea that they put some of these bits and bobs in and they don't always necessarily work that well. If you read through the handbook, these by and large don't make a huge difference. You could have an entire night where all of your promos and all of your angles are generic and it won't make a difference. However, there is a chance your show gets a slight bonus if we change these. And again, it is for immersion purposes, these ones again. So we might have that this is going to be a very serious part of the show, and then we might have a comedic thing and things like that. So this is just a way of kind of working around that. So that's the kind of nuts and bolts of how these parts of the angle work. A segment output up here, this is just so we can add lots of information saying Woods was interviewed by Heyman, then attacked by Nakamura. Again, this is a great one for myself, like a YouTuber, where I can put a lot of stuff in here, and this will come up when we run the show, and we can see everything that's gone on inside there, and it'll bring this narrative up instead of saying there's an angle with this, that, or the other person. Now, the parts that have really kind of sped things up for me is we've got the workers little part here. So I'm going to book this segment, and I'm going to do a slightly different segment. I'm going to do another one here. Rather than using the quick angle, I'm going to do all of this kind of myself. So I'm going to have, if we click in this little bit here, so this kind of square here, we can go in and we can start looking at our roster. So I've got all of my roster here, and we can go through, if we have multiple parts, we can go through all the people who are in the multiple parts of that segment and what they're doing in the segment, which is really I find this a really quick way of doing things. I'm a big fan of stables, for example, and quite often when I have a stable, I forget who is in my stable because they're so big. However, we can go and look through all of our stables that we have, and I can go, oh look, so I've got the Latino World Order here. This will bring up all my Latino World Order members. So, for example, Rey Mysterio, he might come out and cut a promo. But then I want to have, and I will say I don't know who all of these people are, but a non-speaking appearance from all the other members of the Latino World Order. So that's I find this a really quick and fast way of doing this. If we then go from out here, you'll see all these workers have been added into that. We've now got the in-ring angle, it's live, and it's just Rey Mysterio cutting a promo with all of the Latino World Order there, which I think is really good. Now, if we go back into this, we'll see this drop down here of what the people are doing. Now, I like to keep this reasonably realistic. I'm not going to stick, I'm previous versions of TEW. I think what we've done is we've just spammed the Brock Lesnar's and the Big Shows of this world in menace and intimidation and things like that, and you've really just built people up really quickly by just sticking them in angles with Hulk Hogan and The Rock, and they've gone shooting up in popularity by just having them here. We've got lots of different roles people can play. I like to keep this reasonably realistic, and this is where something comes in that I found, and I found this on Reddit. I've mentioned this a few times before in the TEW forums. This is a kind of cheat sheet that I found on Reddit. I can't for the life of me remember who I nabbed it from because I've done my own version. But this is what I would consider like my kind of Bible for running angles. I will have this open at all times when I'm running an angle, because what this is telling me, this has all of your roles that you can possibly have during a segment, during an angle. And this is all of the skills that it will possibly take into account, and also mostly of them it's going to be popularity and whether you're scripted, your momentum, or non-scripted and things like that. However, this is what I kind of use as my Bible as I go along. I'm able to look at this as I go along, and it tells me exactly what they will be rated on in that segment. So, for example, if we go back through and look at, I've put Rey Mysterio. He was in a segment and he is cutting a promo. I can now look at that and go, well, cutting a promo, he is going to be rated on his microphone skills. So if we go into Rey Mysterio, I can look at this and go, right, so his microphone skills are fairly decent. They're 71 to 79. So that's what he's going to be rated on in there. All the others we've got there, and they're all, oh, actually, I've put quite a lot of them down as cutting a promo, actually. So I've done that wrong. So we're going to do a non-speaking appearance for all of these. Zelina Vega, she can have a non-speaking appearance. Now, I'm not going to lie, there's still a lot of clicking about and pressing things, which I think some people aren't so keen on. You know, I still find this kind of drop-down segment and working this way round works pretty well for me. Again, if we're going to go in here a non-speaking appearance, they're not going to be rated on anything other than their popularity and their momentum. So I know they're not going to be rated on very much in these segments. However, we can, once we have them all in there, we could add other parts and we could start bringing other people into that segment and doing other things. But I find using this drop down, being able to do that, and also using this kind of cheat sheet, as I call it, as we go along, my you know, it's going to tell me what we're looking for, you know, and what they're going to be rated on in there. So this is a real quick way of kind of going through it. So what I might do, and I'll have this open on another window myself personally while I'm playing, is I might then look at this. So if we do a different angle now, we get a different angle. We're going to have, let's take, for example, we'll get someone who's going to come down, and we're going to get someone who's going to cut a promo. So we'll get someone who's reasonable at cutting a promo. Who's that going to be in the WWE? Anyone got any ideas? Oh god, we've got a lot of people with decent microphone skills. Let's go even higher then. Who's going to be 80 rated? LA Knight, that's a good one. So we'll have LA Knight. So what he can do is he can cut a promo. And if we're cutting a promo, when we look on my little cheat sheet, cutting a promo, he is going to be judged on his microphone skills. Or we could do something like a character development, or even for someone like LA Knight, I guess comic relief would be another good one. So let's do a character development for him. So this is going to be LA Knight kind of doing something a little bit more. So he's going to be a character development part in there. So he's come down to the ringside and he's cutting a promo. Who's he going to be cutting a promo about? Let's have him cutting a promo about Kevin Owens. Now he's cutting a promo about Kevin Owens, so he's not. We could do him as subject of video. However, this isn't really a video. We're doing this as a live thing. So we're going to do this as off screen, which again, he's not going to be there at all. So he's not going to get rated on anything for this part of it. He's not on screen. However, LA Knight's going to be talking about him going, Kevin Owens, you suck, you stink, you're rubbish. The difference between being off screen and a non-speaking appearance is obviously the non-speaking appearance, he is on screen, so that's why he'll be judged by his popularity. However, this one, he's just talking about him saying, yeah, you're rubbish, that's a load of old twaddle. So we've got here, we're going to have LA Knight, Kevin Owens promo. So part one is going to be LA Knight says Owens stinks. Terrible promo, not going to be great, but it's going to be in ring. It's going to be an interview. It's going to be live, and it's going to be a kind of. We're going to have this as a. Let's say this is going to be a comedy one. So this is going to be a comedy there. We're going to save those details, so then we can take a copy of this part. And what we're going to do then is backstage, we are then going to have an angle, which is still going to be live. But this is going to be more. It's going to be more generic, or maybe a character development, or we could do it as a surprise. Any of these things. But what we're going to do going in here is we're then going to have LA Knight is going to actually have been attacked, so he is going to be the victim, and we'll update that. So that's going to show us that LA Knight is now the victim, and we're going to go in on Kevin Owens is going to be the attacker. And we'll update that. And so if we look at my little cheat sheet again, an attacker will be judged on brawling, puro and hardcore. So if we go into Kevin Owens, we can click on him here, and this is where it gets really quite useful. We can go in here and we can immediately see brawling, puro and hardcore are fairly decent, so he's going to be rated on all of those. And we've got what? LA Knight is the victim of an attack. So if we go into my cheat sheet again, oh, sorry, press the wrong one there. He is the victim. He's just going to be rated on selling. So we'll have a look at what LA Knight is like on that. So we'll go into LA Knight here, and we can go into his skills, and we're going to look along what we're getting here, and selling is a 63 to 71. So again, not too bad, but that's what they're going to be rated on in this segment. So then we can go ahead and we can book that segment. We'll save part 2. Oh, LA Knight would prefer to work without a script. Obviously, we get this in the past. We get this a lot of the time. So improvise, we kind of like, because that'll improvise the whole thing. And then we can, and part 2, we're going to call Owens attacks LA Knight. But as you can see here, by clicking into this little box here, which I'm not sure everyone has spotted, we really can go through quite quickly and start working out exactly who we want in the segment and what we want them in there for. We can go through here and we can do some really quick filtering, so we can get, oh look, go straight in here, get all the members of the New Day, we can get them doing what we want in each segment. And even once we've put parts 1 and parts 2 together, so if we save this, if we go into this again, we can use these drop down here's and we can change exactly what they are doing in each of the segment. We can find out what's happening in each part of the angle, if that makes sense. Again, I find this really quick to kind of race through and get stuff booked. I think it works quite well. I think it makes life a little bit easier from what we've had in the past. I'm not saying that it's perfect. I still think there's a lot of clicking around. But I think some people think this kind of feel that it's a more difficult system to work around rather than not. Personally, I think it works quite well. So if we add a match in here as well, what we can do is we can... Actually, do you know what? We'll use the auto booker just to finish off the show. So we'll get him to book the whole show. And that's going to get the auto booker there. And we've got LA Knight and Kevin Owens promo there. And we've got our Woods interview by Heyman and Shinsuke Nakamura. So we've also got in here, which is going to be quite useful, is we've got some other segments, some other angles that have been booked by the computer. So if we quickly run through this, we can quickly have a look. So we're not particularly interested in the matches, but we are interested in what's going to happen with the segment. So Ludwig Kaiser, this is our Shinsuke Nakamura and Paul Heyman. So I didn't change the time here. They need a little bit more star power in the segment in order to successfully have Shinsuke Nakamura fighting for that long. So we got a segment rating of 60. That's because I think they did them for ages. But what you can see here is we've got part 1 and part 2 of this segment that we have that's been broken down. So Woods talking about Nakamura got a 61. Then Nakamura beating up Woods for 10 minutes got a 59. So we're not surprised that kind of tanked a little bit. This is where we can start looking through exactly what's going on with how they book things. So we've got Solo Sikoa gets a 55 segment rating. What you'll notice with the computer's booking is they go for simple. I would say they go for less is more approach. So the more things we start throwing into a segment, the more people we throw into it, the more chance it has of going wrong. What I think the computer AI does very well, or not well, depending on how you're going to look at it, is they keep their segments very simple. So you'll find it's going to be a lot of backstage. Look, they took backstage, Sami Zayn cutting a promo, Sami Zayn for a 4-minute promo. It's all going to be fairly steady. We can expect some really good stuff there. Jey Uso is doing an interview. You know, this is all really good stuff that's going to go on, but they keep things kind of simple. And once we start throwing more wrestlers and more people into a segment, there's more chances of people floundering and not doing well. So that's why I think it kind of works well. And so we've got here, look, we've got a 75 rating for our segment here. We got, look at that, LA Knight says Owens stinks, got a rating of 100. Then Owens attacking LA Knight gets a 72. Commentary wasn't so great, but other than that, really pleased with that. That's a kind of really steady segment from two guys that I don't think we'd consider top of the card at the moment, but that's kind of how we can make the new angle system work for ourselves, where we can start building up longer segments, or we can start doing other things like that, can't we? So it's kind of interesting in that sense that we can kind of build things from there. We don't have to build massive long segments. You can just have angles that are just that one little bit, and I think the quick angle builder works really well for that. But hopefully I've gone through a few things that maybe you weren't aware of, you've not seen before on the booking sheets. It might give you an idea of just how you can kind of work through it quite quickly. I find I can work through a show very quickly now, because I have in my mind what I want the people doing. I don't tend to book around just this kind of what they're going to be rated on. I'm not going to go, well, LA Knight is going to cut a promo every time because he's great on the microphone. If it makes sense for him to get beaten up, then that's absolutely fine. If we want him working the crowd because that's what he's going to kind of be doing rather than comic relief, then that's what we're going to do. And I like my shows to have an element of realism to them in that sense. But that's not to say you don't have to work off solely this. But I find using this kind of cheat sheet that I've got here, it really helps me drill down into what they're going to be rated on so I can get an idea of what it's going to be, and it just gives me a better idea of just what's happening within the segment. So it's dramatic acting, I'm going to be looking for someone who's going to be able to act well. If it's a fight, so it's a brawl as opposed to someone getting attacked and a victim, you know, we can start working out from there. And once we start using those angle builders and we start using the quick angle builder and we start adding parts to it, I do think the system works quite well. Like I say, this isn't a cheat sheet to just a cheat code of kind of like, well, we're going to get 99 rated segments all the time. I'm not saying that I know how to do that, but all I'm saying is that we can make this kind of work quickly for ourselves, and I think that's how it kind of really improves. So yeah, you know what, let me know what you think about it, and let me know what you think of the new booking system and the new angles, if it works for you, if it doesn't. Like I say, I find once we go into the workers in the part section, I can work pretty quickly through this with working with what I want them to do, and I can start adding people and just get my segments put together pretty quickly and get my shows booked quickly. If you can't, or if you've got any other questions about it, then please let me know. I'd love to know. I've not really seen anyone do any sort of how-tos on things, or just maybe done sort of walkthroughs of it. So whether this is something you're interested in seeing in the future, please let me know. But otherwise, I'm going to be continuing with my games, and hopefully they give everyone a bit of an insight into what's going on. And yeah, hopefully see you all again soon, guys. Take care. Bye.